Massive Final Fantasy VII Rebirth spoilers ahead. So if you guys don't want any spoilers, be sure to click off the video. But I mean, we're diving straight into like the deepest end of spoilers. This is not just minor spoilers. This is not just mild spoilers. This is major spoilers. Okay, it's like we're talking about the deepest parts of the game. So if you want to hear the conversation, stick around. If you don't, click off the video, come back when you have actually finished the game, because this is something you're gonna want to talk about. It's something that you are definitely gonna want to be part of the discussion. So again, guys, use the comment section. Let's discuss this ending because it's crazy. This is going to be a little bit of a mixture of a sort of looser ending explained video, but also a little bit of a spoilery kind of review. So it's kind of like a two-in-one style video. So just be forewarned of that. There's a lot of ending explained videos already out there that are, super formal and whatever. I wanted to do a little bit of a different take. So hopefully you guys don't mind that. But we are going to be talking about all the spoilers. I'm going to be trying to explain it to the best of my ability, and also giving some, kind of spoilery reviews. I've already done an actual review, spoiler free. If you want to check it out, it's on the channel. But let's go ahead and jump into this. So Final Fantasy VII Remake, Rebirth, they've done something that is obviously very different, right? We had the Whispers introduced in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and basically what happened at the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, when we assumingly stopped, the whole thing with the Whispers and Sephiroth and all that, we thought, oh, we did something good. But what we actually ended up doing, and I guess we didn't realize it at the time, excuse me, is we ended up creating a whole other timeline, a whole other world in essence. And so what we end up seeing as we progress through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is more of Cloud having these weird kind of flashes, as if like he knows certain things, but he doesn't really know them. You know what I mean? It's like these flashbacks of like I'm certain I know, almost like when in real life when we feel like, oh man, this has happened again, right? This is sort of like a deja vu. Well, he's having that, but for a reason, because he's connected to another sort of, other worlds in a sense. Obviously, part of that is also, related to Zack and just the Mako and different things like that. But it's also deeper than that, because Nomura came in swinging with this one, and he did what sort of he did in Kingdom Hearts, which is make this crazy, intricate, sort of complex story out of the Final Fantasy VII, remake Rebirth world, if you will, taking the original game and just making it so much deeper and bigger than we could have ever imagined. And we knew it was getting deeper, we knew it was getting bigger, we knew we were going to get a lot more depth on our individual character stories. But what we see towards the end is a little bit of a switch of fate, right? So if you're like me, when you were first playing the ending, the Aerith scene, where, in the original 1997 game, Aerith dies, right? She just gets impaled by Sephiroth. It's one of the saddest, I think, moments in any 1990s video game ever. It was just so sad, man. But we were all wondering, are they going to change it? Because everything's changing with this whole remake. It seems like they're kind of telling something different. The Whispers are new and all this. And the answer is yes, no. So on one hand, yes, Cloud saves Aerith. On the other hand, no, Cloud does not save Aerith, and she still dies. And that sounds very confusing. And it's very confusing when you're in the moment until you see everything unravel and you start connecting all the dots. And maybe this is something that you need help with, or maybe you've already connected the dots in your own head. And so I'm going to try to help, or at least discuss this along the way. But essentially what happens is there are two different worlds that are happening kind of simultaneously, that we're seeing simultaneously. And so in one world, it's true. Cloud ends up saving Aerith, right? He deflects Sephiroth's blade, and we see this because we see two different scenes. There's one part of the cutscene where we see two different scenes where Cloud is holding Aerith, and in one of them she looks fine. She just looks weary, if you will, and in the other one she's bloodied. And so you can tell that the one that she's bloodied, obviously she was murdered. And the other one, you're like, well, why is she bloodied here? Is this just like Cloud having, tripping out or something? Well, what seems to be taking place is the fact that there are multiple realities. And actually, ironically, not just two, but multiple realities. For example, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I've seen other people point this out. Stamp the dog. If you pay attention to Stamp the Dog, there's different scenes where maybe there's a painting, like a spray painting on a wall of Stamp the Dog, or especially on the chips, the pack of chips that we actually see Biggs eating in the the reactor when Zack comes and meets him. If you pay attention to the dog, the dog is different. Stamp the dog is a different kind of dog in every single instance, and the show is about, I think, like four or five different versions of Stamp the dog, indicating that there are probably like 4 or 5 different worlds at least that we know of. So there's not just 2 realities, there's multiple realities. Zack has his own reality, which, you know, we see, and at some point you're kind of wondering what's going on here. Is this like a flashback as you're playing through the game? Because you keep getting, you know, flashes to Zack's reality, and you see that, you know, Cloud is very unwell from Mako poisoning. Aerith is basically in a coma, and it's revealed as the game progresses and we get towards the end that this is actually an alternate reality. But then what happens when we're in the final boss fight, which has like, what, 4, 5, 6 different stages, different waves of it, is we have a moment where the worlds kind of converge, right? So Zack's world and Cloud's world kind of converge to the point where Zack shows up in Cloud's world and they're like, whoa, what's going on here? Zack's, you know, obviously surprised because he's used to seeing Cloud sick from Mako poisoning, and now he's standing next to a healthy Cloud fighting giant Sephiroth. And so we have this duel where we have Zack and Cloud fighting against Sephiroth. And so that moment is the worlds converging, right? We have a moment also in the fight where it's just Zack fighting in his world, and then we have also a moment where it's just Cloud fighting. We have moments where we see the rest of the group fighting, and that's where it's kind of a little bit confusing in one sense, where I'm not 100% sure if those are 2 different worlds as well, because we see obviously everyone else, Tifa, Barrett, Yuffie, Red, etc. There's a scene where we're fighting Sephiroth as them, but then there's other scenes where we're fighting Sephiroth as just Cloud, and it seems as though Cloud at this point is maybe crossing over into another world, and something is going on there. Now, what we see during the chapter 13 segment with Aerith, when we're kind of, you know, strolling around Midgar with Aerith, and again, pay attention to the chip bags, because there's a section where we can choose candy and there's chip bags there as well. Pay attention to that, because again, Stamp the dog. But what happens is they look into the sky and they see that there's a tear in the sky, and essentially what's happening is a tear in that world, right? So if you've ever I hate to reference other media, but if you've ever watched Loki, Marvel's Loki, you might have a little bit more of a better idea of what's going on here. And so this world that Cloud and Aerith are in is basically fading. It's being destroyed. Now, speaking of Aerith, what happens in the main world is obviously Aerith has her white materia, right? But as we see, I think we first see it in the Costa del Sol chapter. I forget what chapter that is. I think it's maybe like 6 or 7. We see that all the white materia essence is gone. It's just basically a hollow orb at this point. And basically what happens is the whispers, right? Every time they kind of surround Aerith and whatnot, it's kind of sucking more of that out of the materia until the materia is just completely drained. So what happens later is, as we're having this stroll with Aerith, it's a different Aerith, and her materia is good. And we see at the very end of that is right before Sephiroth arrives at the church. This Aerith gives Cloud her materia, which is perfectly filled, right? It's not just an empty vessel. She gives it to Cloud and pushes Cloud through a dimension barrier, if you will, portal, whatever you want to call it, that sends him back to his world. So now he has this materia. Now this is where things get a little bit kind of tricky, because we do see Aerith in a couple different forms. So we see Aerith, like I said, Cloud's holding her at the end of the whole boss fight. There's 2 different scenes where he's holding Aerith that's bloodied. Obviously, she's been killed. But then another Aerith where he says, Aerith, wake up. Now, we see another scene where the whole crowd, the rest of the party, the rest of the team, you know, Tifa, Barrett, Red, Yuffie, etc., they're all surrounding Aerith, who assumingly is died. And so we have almost like 3 different scenes, it feels like, where we have one where Cloud is holding bloodied Aerith. She's died. That seems to be the main timeline. But that seems to be maybe the timeline that we come back to where the crowd is surrounding her. Maybe at that point, Cloud has kind of stepped away to allow the others to see Aerith and say goodbye, if you will. But one thing's for sure is there is at least one, if not multiple Aeriths that are alive in other universes, in other worlds. But then we also see the fact that at the end of the main story, in the main cutscene when they're trying to fix the Bronco, we see that Cloud is seeing and talking to Aerith. So he's able to see her. He's able to see like across dimensions, but also see into some sort of deeper realm. And the question, I guess, really remains: is this a spirit version of Aerith in this world, or is he seeing another Aerith kind of converge across from another world? Because only he can see her. The rest of the crew cannot see her. And obviously it's been obvious through the whole game that it's Cloud having these kind of flashbacks, and he's getting torn between kind of worlds and has, you know, visions and memories between worlds. So the question is this Aerith, like I said, spirit, kind of just spirit version of Aerith? Because again, in the original game, yeah, Aerith dies, but then her spirit still remains, and she ends up saving the world in that form. But it's also worth noting that in one of the final phases of the boss fight against Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we see that Aerith is fighting with us. But then at the very end, she kind of fades, you know, with green mist, if you will. So it's kind of like she's returning to the live stream. So again, the question is, the Aerith that we are seeing at the very, very end, she makes a promise to Cloud, right? That she's going to do all she can to pray, just kind of like she does in the original game, and to stop the meteor. And that Cloud makes his own promise that he'll do everything he can to stop Sephiroth. And again, the question is this spirit version of Aerith kind of like in the original game, or is this a different Aerith from a different timeline? Either way, there are multiple timelines, there are multiple worlds. And even Zack says at the very end, when he's sitting on a bench on a pew in the church, he even says that he has hope that, you know, he's gonna see them again, basically, right? That worlds again will kind of mesh together. One thing to note, though, is one of the last things that Cloud sees, and he tells the others, and I guess maybe he doesn't realize that the others can't see it, I'm not sure, is he tells them, don't look up. And when he looks up, you see the exact same tear in their reality, in their world, that occurred, that we've seen in that other world where he was strolling around with Aerith and Midgar. And so it seems as their reality is also being torn at the seams, and is maybe on the brink of being destroyed. So again, there are so many different timelines, there are so many different worlds that are being kind of presented and portrayed to us, that it's very difficult to kind of piece it all together, especially when it's all kind of like, it's like having puzzle pieces that are kind of mixed up, right? And we have to kind of not just piece them together, but also put them in the right order. And that's kind of what we're struggling to do with this. But I think there's a lot of sense we can make from it, like I just explained, but there's still a lot that I think is yet to be answered. And again, compared to Kingdom Hearts, if anyone has been, has followed Kingdom Hearts, you know what I mean. There's a lot of elements of Kingdom Hearts where in any given game, they're going to give you a bunch of answers, sometimes blatantly so, sometimes more a little bit discreetly, and you got to kind of piece things together. And other times, there's going to be things you just don't know, and you just can't piece together until the following game. All I know is that I personally feel Nomura is a mastermind. I love what he does with Kingdom Hearts. I'm loving what he's doing with Final Fantasy and how he's directing Final Fantasy VII's remake. And I'm really, really, really curious how the third installment is going to play out, because again, just how, the first and second game has been going, and all the information we now have about these, basically a multiverse, if you will, it's almost like we just don't know. We expect that it's going to follow the same beats, because Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, for the most part, follow the same kind of story beats as the main game. But how that's told, and how is it going to really end? It's going to be the end of the telling of, Final Fantasy VII. But are they going to end it on a way that leaves it open, where they can tell more stories in the Final Fantasy VII universe? I think that may be what they're setting up for, potentially. I hope so, because a lot of people love the Final Fantasy VII universe, and to be able to somehow have an open door where they can tell more stories in that world somehow, I think would be really, really cool. Personally speaking, But at the end of the day, maybe some people just want, you know, a solid kind of, you know, concrete conclusion. It's subjective, but personally speaking, I kind of hope, you know, they do explore more in this world, whether it's different universes or whatever. I'll say one thing is that although it's very, very, very sad that Aerith dies, it's also very hopeful that at least there's an Aerith or multiple Aeriths in other worlds, other universes that seem to be at least alive and well. Maybe, potentially, for the time being, or I don't know. If there's sense to be made of it, who knows? There's probably a lot more we could say. I've already ranted way longer than I wanted to. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the other stuff in the game, but I think we'll leave it at that. We'll just kind of leave it at talking about, you know, the actual story, the crazy plots and twists. I'll say that it's interesting that Cloud puts the black materia in his sword at the very end of the game. You know, Sephiroth wants him to keep it safe, and you know, obviously he knows that Sephiroth is north. Why? Because all of Jenova's cells are being summoned back from Sephiroth up north, just like in the original game. And of course, Cloud is part of that, and so he knows, right? He has some of Jenova's cells as well, having been tested on by Hojo, as well as all the black-robed men. And so that's the whole deal with the reunion. The reunion is all of the cells coming back and converging with Jenova. One last time, I guess, if you will. So we'll see how it plays out in the final game. Hopefully it comes out sooner than later. Hopefully not maybe another full 4 years, but maybe, I don't know. As we've seen with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you know, if they take their time doing what they want with it, it ends up a masterful game. I think it's a masterpiece of a game. I cannot wait to see how the third one, you know, continues this. And I love it. I'm here for it, man. I love the story, how it's kind of playing out. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. There might be some elements I forgot to mention. If I did, you let me know in the comments. I made this long enough as is. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay well. Until the next one, game on. See you guys soon.
Hey you! What are you doing? Join the Skeleton Army! Do it today! Don't wait till tomorrow because tomorrow might never come. The Earth is gonna fade, that's inevitable. The next second of your life's not even promised, so you better think about where you're going, and you might as well just join the Skeleton Army. Plus, we do kinda like you a little bit, so it'd be nice to see you around here. But if you don't want to, hey, you're lost. See you later!